Welcome to the Chasing Brighter podcast, the podcast created as a guide to make midlife the best life.
Are you ready to embrace the next chapter of your life with confidence and excitement? Your best life is just a listen away. Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can stop doing it all alone. Does that resonate with you, Kel? Are you doing it all? And I think one of the things we have talked about, I want to say, would you say kind of every August and September since we started, we would have organizational and time management experts on? And they talk about those systems, right? Having systems set up. And if you've never heard of systems, right, it's like we have a cubby when you walk in our house, right? So that's an easy system to put your shoes in the cubby. And so we want to talk about systems at home, systems at work, because I know that's something you and I are dealing with, right? And we're constantly refiguring it, like reconfiguring what those systems are to kind of help take things off your plate. And asking for help, right? Do you have a hard time asking for help?
Yeah, I do because, part of it too is it's like, I think sometimes it's hard in a couple different situations. One is like, I'm not the breadwinner. And so sometimes I feel like there are things I need to take on more. And as I've gotten evolved here, I realize that that's not always the case just because I'm not necessarily always bringing home the bacon. There's only so much we have. And as you know, Jess, happy wife, happy life. So it's just a matter of working through some of those things sometimes.
For myself and my marriage, we have been married August 4th was 24 years for us.
Wow.
I think that I have learned, I think for a long time, I was resentful to have to ask. I think a lot of people do this early on, right? You want your partner to know, you should know I wanted red roses and you should know that you were supposed to make dinner. But I learned maybe 8 years in after we had our first child that if I ask, my partner does it, right? And so he likes acts of service. And so he does the laundry in our household and he shows the way he cares by doing things, right? So he'll pick up here or whatever. And so if I just ask, chances are, right? And there are things he does on his own. I think that's a big thing right now in the mental load world is not making your partner ask. That's one more task that's on me. But I just think for us, what works is I am able to ask for what I need and then I get what I need. That is kind of simple. But I think that took a long time to get there. And like you're saying, right, we have all this other stuff happening that makes it difficult for us to reach out to friends, family, our village, our kids to ask for help. So that's what we want to get into today. Yes. I know that's what we're talking about, right? I know our listeners feel like they're juggling a dozen plates, work deadlines, laundry piles, emotional check-ins, and we get to a point where one more task might break us.
Yes. Tough is sometimes we feel like we have to just power through those moments using just grit and willpower and thinking it'll get better. The truth is that willpower is limited. It drains you, especially when you're tired. You get burnt out, you get overwhelmed. And to me, this concept of powering through, there's no end in sight. You're constantly in these moments of powering through things. And so the one thing that you really need is to figure out what are systems that can help sustain you.
Because systems reduce the number of decisions we have to make in a day. Systems create structure, predictability, and like what you're talking about, the much needed breathing room. They help protect our energy. And when we build systems around our values and needs at home and at work, then we're creating space for creativity, rest, and presence. We shift out of survival mode and into a rhythm that feels more doable and aligned. So let's look at systems that we can set up at home.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds so lovely just thinking about that, right? Getting into a rhythm that's doable, that's aligned, that's not stressful. And so, one of the big pieces, especially for busy families and especially coming back into school and routines and bedtimes and after school activities is meal
Yes.
planning. One of the hardest things is all of a sudden it's like 6 o'clock and everyone's like, I'm hungry, and you are spent and you didn't have a plan. Something happened that day, you got thrown off, and everything went out the window. So, and a really good system to have is to really think about meal planning. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be Pinterest worthy. It's just knowing what's for dinner most nights can take away daily
Absolutely.
stress. Um, and that can be anything from a theme system where you have maybe Meatless Monday, Taco Tuesday, or what I like to do is probably a mix, but one is a running list of easy go-to
Yeah.
meals that I always have in the house, even if it's something different for each person or different groups of people in your household. One of the absolutely critical things is to doing that like prep, the meal prep, at least thinking about it, whether it's on Sundays. I have a friend who does it on Wednesdays because sometimes she does her grocery shopping in the middle of the week, which can be easier. But setting in those systems where you've got certain days of the week that you're going to do some meal prep and then figuring out how you're basically have a plan of how you're going to get through your week. I always set, not always, but sometimes I set unrealistic expectations on myself, right? Like you get those newsletters in your inbox, right? And you're like, oh my God, that recipe looks great. That recipe. And you're like, I'm going to make all those things this week. And then you get to the grocery store or you buy all the things that you need. And then it's, 6 o'clock on Monday and you're like, oh my God, I have no energy to do anything.
Yeah.
And you're like scrambling. So it's about how do you prevent that with a system that just is like, you got to have some backup plans.
Yeah.
Knowing that maybe some unexpected things are going to happen
One
during
of
the
the
week.
things that we are working on in our home is not having meals delivered. That is because we know that food out is not as healthy for you. You don't know the ingredients and the expense. So we're fancy, we're bougie, we're getting like great meals delivered for my family of 5. That's going to be over $200 every time. Right. And that's crazy because we have gotten to a point where that might be 3 meals a week because we're so burnt out and so tired.
Yeah,
And
I
so
understand.
Justin and I have been like, listen, we are tightening our budget because that does not reflect my values. I don't want my money to go to food out.
Yes.
I'd rather go to London. I'd rather go here. I'd rather him and I go to a really nice dinner out. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's not where I want my money to go. And I also know that doesn't help when you're trying to make healthy, good choices. And so we have had a talk and what is helpful. So the other night, so we like to have frozen things for like when shit hits a fan. So I always have frozen pizzas. And we always have frozen mini tacos, and then maybe we have like tortillas to have quesadillas. But I had bought this frozen steak, like kind of like fajita steak, and I was like,
oh yeah, I have those.
I don't know
steaks?
what it is, whatever. And I had ordered grocery delivery, and I had ordered ground turkey and I was going to come home and make this Thai basil turkey that we like. And I come home, I'm exhausted, but I have just enough energy to like make this meal. And I look, and there's no meat anywhere. And I look on my delivery grocery thing because I was like in sessions, I didn't notice, and that was out and canceled, and we had no ground turkey. And so I was like, I'm out, I'm done. That was like tipped me over, and I'm like, Justin, I can't do anything, I'm done. I get my brain, that was the one thing my brain could make, and now my brain died. And he goes, well, we've got the steak in here. And I was like, I'm not doing quesadillas because we have a griddle and I'm the quesadilla maker, and my kids were all precious babies, and we get the Fiesta party dip mix from Tastefully Simple. So the quesadillas they like, or I have to spread that on. I have to shred all the cheese. I have to make it. I don't want to shred cheese right now. I don't want to make the party dip mix. I don't want to spread that on there. I don't want to stand in front of a hot griddle making batches and batches of quesadillas. Because, they'll be like, oh, I want another one. And then I'm not sitting down. I'm over there making more quesadillas. So I was like, well, what if we do steak frites? We've got some fries in here. We'll put those in the air fryer. I'll make the steak. I go, okay, but I'm a little sketched out. I don't want to eat this steak plain. I think it's better in something because I don't think it's going to be that wonderful, these frozen steak strips. So he makes and he goes, what do you think? And I was like, I am not going to be able to eat that steak plain, but if we chop it up and we'll take the fries you made and we'll just make carne asada fries. Okay. So he's like, okay, fine. And I had bought shredded cheese blend. So he goes, okay. So we just throw the fries on a pan. I throw cheese on it, whatever. Kids come down and they're just like, I mean, Dominic, it doesn't even sit. He's like shoveling it in his face. And Justin and I high-fived and we were so proud of ourselves that neither one of us wanted to do anything, but we made the freaking meal because our goal was not to order in. So having like the frozen things is helpful. There's Every Plate, HelloFresh, those kind of things that kind of help take the guesswork out of you. So like you said, it's this combination of having some stuff planned and then always kind of having some things that you know that like a ready-made meal, a list in your brain of you guys that you always have those ingredients and can make. You know, we have a panini press. We've done just grilled cheeses, right? Something simple when you're totally burnt out, but it's real, right? It's real that having to make a meal at the end of the day is something that will tip you over the edge. So having that system of planning ahead is really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. We are the same. And I know many families are where it's so easy to order in because it's like somebody else preparing, but we all struggle with the same thing. It's so many calories.
Yeah.
And it's so much money. And it really does add up. And so finding other ways that you can be just as effective. I ended up cooking up 8 pounds of chicken breast last night.
Look at you.
And what I did was I'll skillet it on really high temp for like 3 minutes per side. And then I throw it all in the crock pot for 8 minutes. And so, because if you do that, then the chicken stays together better in the crock pot. Not the crock pot, sorry, the Instapot. I did the 8-minute Instapot thing. I love the Instant Pot. I use that all the time. Anyway, but we definitely have the frozen pizzas now more and more. And I'm finding, because I used to not even like them myself, but it's like, you know what? It's better eating a frozen pizza than me ordering in pizza. Right. And so it's like little things like that and finding like there are healthy frozen pizza choices. And so just really changing the way that we eat is better on my waistline and my pocketbook.
And we also talk about, we read the book, How to Be Well by Dr. Frank Lipman. And a lot of people think the core of wellness is what we eat too. I mean, it really is important for our health and well-being that we're eating foods that really nourish our bodies. Another tip to help, another system to set up is delegating chores. And I've said this before. My kids went to Montessori. That's a big Montessori thing, that really young children can do a lot of things in your home. And I've been talking to the clients in my practice who have struggled with the mental load. It's like, are your kids unloading the dishwasher? Are your kids putting their clothes away? There are so many things that our kids can automatically do. And we are teaching them life skills. This is not a punishment. Young kids can sort laundry. They can wipe surfaces. They can feed pets. Teens can clean bathrooms, do dishes, cook once a week. When you create a shared responsibility in this system, it empowers your kids and gives you breathing room. We have that, again, Skylight calendar. It has chores on there. And we really utilize that in the summer for my 10-year-old to do, to earn more screen time. We have our teens, they clean up the dog poop, they take out trash recycling, they unload and load the dishwasher. We put the meal away and clean up as a family. They feed our animals. When I was able to delegate and outsource unloading the dishwasher, that is my most hated task. And when I was able to delegate that, that was life-changing for me. Is there a task that you've delegated that you are like, oh, this is wonderful?
Have raised the kids to be able to do a myriad of tasks, and they don't always do the same task, but what I need done, I ask them to do, and they do it. And so I think, to the point about delegating, is now we're at a point where they can do a myriad of things. And so having more regularly do that. And I think that's part that I love having these episodes, because it's like a refresher where it's like, yes, I need to have, like, emptying the dishwasher they can do, but then it turns out where it's something where I need it done at this certain moment in time that they're not around me for whatever reason. But especially during the summer, there's more ability to like have them home more, right? To do stuff. And so I love that. One of the things that, because the kids will clean the bathrooms, they can do sort the laundry and start a load. And so really continue to work through. My kids definitely sort their own laundry. But I like the idea. One of the things maybe I should push for is for them to cook once a week.
Yeah.
And see and even let them kind of run with that. So that's going to be my goal.
And they can be
to try
more
that out.
involved. Like now, my older teen drives and she'll be like, do you need me to get anything? So, and I know Wes can walk to the grocery or whatever, but it's like you could give them a list or say, hey, go figure something out. I mean, they can start from scratch by getting the ingredients, figuring out the meal, and making it themselves at that point. When we did Every Plate, that was much easier for us to outsource meal prep because everything was already like measured and everything, and they could go do it. So that was easier having them do it. And I think it's setting up that system, right? They have the skills. How do we have that system, right? Of like, you know, I know that they're going to unload the dishwasher dishwasher Tuesday, Thursday. I know they're going to do laundry Wednesday, Friday, whatever that is, just kind of, and that transitions us into our other tip of automating the predictable. You've been doing this for years, would you say? Like anything that we do repeatedly can be automated or scheduled, like subscription deliveries for essentials.
Yeah. Yeah. I have been doing it for years and I love it. A lot of those subscriptions for things you can kind of like accelerate or slow down when you need to as well. And just making sure you always have those things. I think, I don't know about you, Jess, but like, and granted, maybe, well, we had a pantry in Kansas, but like for whatever reason, I always feel like we never had backups. Like I have a backup of a backup. Like I always have a pantry full of the certain ketchups that we like or the certain, right? Like I have multiple of those things. So it's like I always have everything at my fingertips. So it's like always making sure that I don't run out of things for whatever reason. And I think maybe with COVID, maybe I'm curious if a lot of other people feel that way too, where I just kind of changed my habits. I no longer am like just in time replenishing things, but I always make sure I have a couple backups of our regular items. But I definitely think subscription deliveries are the way to go for things. And, you know, I am obsessed with reminders.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I am always using, even if I'm like, I have a reminder set for myself at 3:00 today to schedule a haircut for Beckett. Cause it's like, I think the mental load piece, right? Where I don't have time to do something right now. I just need to remember it in the future. So we want it to free up and give ourselves more time to focus on what matters.
With the reminder, if you have a smart speaker, that's helpful, right? Of just getting that out of your brain. And like I shared, we have a shared family calendar. That's an automation of just like, instead of the kids saying, hey, put this in the calendar, or, hey, I've got this, that they do it themselves. And it's automated that we know we're automatically putting things in the calendar. So that is helpful and frees up a lot of brain space. So that was systems at home. Now we want to talk about systems at work. We have 3 tips on systems for work. And first is block your calendar for focused work. Because if you don't claim your time, someone else will. So make sure that you set aside focused work blocks, even if it's 1 hour per day. Treat it like a meeting with yourself, and that helps protect your attention and improves productivity and satisfaction. Kelly and I both are solopreneurs, but I remember when I did work in an office, no matter where I worked, people were constantly coming to me. Maybe they'd just park in my office and be talking to me the whole time. And, or, you know, so I can remember that having things to do and not knowing how to tell people to get out of my office. And so I think that's great to be like, oh, you know what? It's 2:00. I've got this meeting I've got to get to. And then really looking at that focused time. And so I think that's a great idea because depending on how your work goes, right? Or if you are a solopreneur and work from home like we do, you could work 24/7. So making sure that you just kind of like block that time out and you're not just kind of always working.
Yeah. And I think along those lines too, and it really is about setting boundaries even for email, you know, and clear communication is a really powerful system. We're doing a lot of work-life balance What I find is also, know that you're unavailable after 5
Love
o'clock
that.
and you'll respond in the morning. I have a couple customers right now who are responding to me like they won't respond all day and then it's after 5 o'clock. But you know what? I'm not online till the morning. So they could have waited till the morning. They didn't need to do that extra time. So think about it that way too, is, even if you feel this pressure to do something after 5, is the other person on the other end going to even be there? So, and then if you give maybe you give yourself a block time of focus in the morning that you can do those things. So you really, truly kind of disconnect. Or, sometimes just let people know that you need a couple days to review something just so that they know you got it. Sometimes people don't know that. I think that's a huge thing just in general in terms of professionalism that I'm sure many of us already know, but I sometimes forget myself. It'll be like, hey, let me get back to you. I don't even have to say when or whatever. Like you can say, I'll get back to you in a couple days or whatever it is. But and you're leaving the ball in your court. Maybe you need to give yourself a deadline just so you can get back. But at the end of the day, you're letting that person know that they've been heard and
I
you'll
used
take
to
care of it.
only work I don't know if it's 3 days a week, but also when I'm working, it's like back to back to back sessions. So I blocked out times when I was returning phone calls. So my voicemail used to say, I return phone calls Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you can kind of have those systems set up to let people know when you're managing calls, when you're sitting down and doing this kind of stuff. Again, just kind of normalizing boundary setting. A final tip with the systems at work is asking for help before burnout hits. I think sometimes it's so normal to wait until we're drowning, So setting up a system to check with yourself weekly, what's on my plate? What can I delegate? What can I defer? And building a culture where you're asking for help and making sure that you recognize that that is seen as a strength and not a weakness.
Yeah, I do think this is important, but I think this is a tough topic because sometimes I think it's important for people to know that you need help.
Yeah.
That's it. You may not get a solution right away, but I think people are not going to know that you need help unless you say something. And it is definitely not a sign of weakness, but I think also don't even see this as it's not going to matter, because so many times in this world, you got to put it out there in the universe, right? You got to put it out there in the universe, and then the universe will help sort things out for you. And so, whether that's not, obviously in our professional life, but also personally, when those are moments where you're starting to feel burnout and overwhelmed, like take a time out, figure out what you have on your plate, like you said. Maybe you need to stop doing some things, figure out what really matters, and check your values.
And I think depending on what you're doing, when we're talking about that, like in the workplace, again, an example, when you work by yourself, maybe we're not able to ask anybody to help us with the work, right? Like if you're doing it all yourself, you can't ask Brian, hey, Brian, can you respond to these emails? But you can talk to your family and say, hey, this is a really stressful time for work right now, so I'm going to need you to take over this task. I'm going to need you to do a meal prep this week. I'm going to need you to do that this week. So then that gives us a little more ability to have more brain power to focus on work if that's a different time. Does that make sense? If it's a difficult time.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I mean, and I think, as we transition to that, I think the message here is systems are self-care. And they're self-care for overfunctioning. And so if you're the one who, feels like it's always holding it together, systems, they're not just helpful, but they're really essential for you. And they're going to help you prevent burnout and really reduce resentment, giving you back the capacity to be present and to live the life you want, not just always being focused on being productive.
You don't need to do more, right? But you can design a life that supports you. Our journal prompts for this episode are: what's one task that drains you weekly? And how could a small system simplify or support that? Building better systems is not selfish, it's strategic.
Thanks for listening today.
If you loved today's episode, share with a friend.
Are you ready to chase
together.